Welcome back once again, everyone, to 50 Shelves of Grey Matter, bookshelf and book review. This is the first book. This is a special episode because look at the thickness of the books. I've got all the fat books today for you. So, let's see which is the first book. This book is Hans and Rudolph, a book based on Second World War. It's a real story. It's most of my books, as you would know, are non-fiction because I enjoy non-fiction more than fiction. Now, Hans and Rudolph is a story about a German Jew and the and the uh, person who was in charge of Auschwitz, the most horrific concentration camp. Hans was the name of the Jew who uh, who fled Germany to kind of migrate to England, and then he joined the British Air Force, and then he got captured, and then he was transferred to Auschwitz. Now it traces the story of both these people. Look, this is this is the Nazi on the right, uh, Rudolf Heuss, and this is Hans Alexander. Look at what it says. Hans Alexander was the son of a prosperous German family who fled Berlin for London in 1930s, and Rudolf Heuss was the commandant of Auschwitz. And the story is about how their lives evolved. Eventually, they met in Auschwitz, and then after the defeat of Nazis, how Hans traced him back and got him uh, convicted. Ultimately, he was hanged. Rudolf Heuss, the Nazi commandant of Auschwitz, ultimately he was hanged inside inside the Auschwitz. And there's a very the last chapter is a very uh, poignant one because in it uh, the author is the grandson of Hans. The author Thomas Harding is the grandson of Hans, and he took this whole journey in his grandfather's life. So ultimately, what he does is, in the end of the book, there's a very touching story about Thomas Harding going with Rudolf Heuss's grandson to Auschwitz and taking a tour. So Hans's grandson, Thomas Harding, and Rudolph's grandson, both of them went there. And the grandson of Rudolph had only words of apology. He was not at all proud of his grandfather. So it's a very good book. As you can see, you have great comments from great authors like John Le Carre, Matt Hastings, also Frederick Forsyth, the all-time uh, uh, the famous novelist, as well as David Lodge. So this is the first book, and it's a non-fiction memoir, not a memoir. It also won the Costa Book Award. Not won, it was shortlisted. It's a very gripping tale, and as you must have seen, I have covered several books of Second World War because that's something that I enjoy reading. It has a few, lot of pages in between also, like all non-fiction books generally have, especially of the biographical kind. These photographs of Hans and Rudolf, both. It traces both their lives. So it's a very interesting read. If you get hold of this book, you will enjoy it. So let's see what is the second thick book today. Okay, this is a nice looking book, very beautiful cover by the great novelist Iris Murdoch, who also was a philosopher. But this is a novel. She wrote quite a few novels. I read it, but I didn't like it at all. So it's not a good book at all. I like Murdoch's philosophical works far more than her novels, and in particular, this novel was it's just a waste of time. So I'm not going to review it which is the third book. Okay, this is excuse me, Creative Capitalism by Bill Gates and Warren Buffett. Uh, I'm sorry, this is conversations with Bill Gates and Warren Buffett and others. So quite a few authors are there who have talked about the problems of capitalism and the goods of capitalism. A lot of, in fact, Abhijit Bhattacharya, the Nobel Prize winner last year, the Indian Nobel Prize winner, he is also there. Uh, and there's Paul Omerod, the famous economist, iconoclastic economist, Vernon Smith, and mostly these Bhagwati, all these famous economists have things to say like what makes capitalism work. Most of these are in favor of capitalism, but are also aware of the problems that it poses. Uh, there, there are quite a few pages where the argument has become quite intense between the two sides. So, for those of you who like philosophical economics, this is a very good book. Okay, and let's see which is the next book. Oh, this is a thick. Look how thick is this. Most of the books are thick. Actually, this is really thick. Much, many more pages than the last one. This is almost 500 pages. And this is a book called Big Bang by Simon Singh. Simon Singh is a famous science writer, science journalist. And actually, I haven't read this book at all, because I bought it just recently. And the pictures of people like Hubble and all. Of course, as it is about Big Bang, the most important scientific discovery, and all you need to know about it. So I liked it because I like the cover. It's got a lot of praise from new scientists. I have read his Fermat's Last Theorem, Simon Singh's, and another book of his. I think it was about quack medicine or something. But Fermat's Last Theorem, I've read. It was an amazingly good book. I don't have that book, Fermat's Last, but I have this one, which I have not read. I think it should be a good one. But anyway, you don't own books always to read. You can have books just to read when you get time. Most of the books I read, but mostly like this one. Another. This is the fattest of all. Very thick. A book of interviews. I bought this book because of its historical value. It has newspaper article interviews uh, from the past, from of these great people. Like you see, this is Oscar Wilde. Um, this is Hitler, Margaret Thatcher, and others. So I haven't read all of it, but I have read quite a few. Like Karl Marx's interview is there, Mark Twain's interview is there, R.L. Stevenson's, Roosevelt, Marx. So this is quite a thick book. This is not a book to be read in one go. It's like when you feel like you can pick out one person whose interview you can read. Al Capone is also there, George Bernard Shaw. So it's a book full of interviews. As the name says, the Penguin Book of Interviews. It's a kind of a reference book, but it's very interesting because it gives you the perspective from the contemporary world when these people were there. On the back also you have a couple of photos. um, I don't know who most of them are except JFK, John F. Kennedy. This is so. Anyway, there are mostly they are quite well known people here. Now, so there goes my last book. I don't have enough space on the first shelf to keep it there. So this is the entire episode for this one. Um, the fat book episode, you can call it. And of these, I told you, I've two I haven't read. Penguin Book of Interviews in its entirety, but this I have read in parts because it's not it's an anthology, so you don't need to read it in one go. So I've read a couple of interviews and it's of great historical value, reference value. This is a bad work. no other words for it. This is a, just I won't advise anyone to read this novel of Iris Murdoch, but of course her philosophical works are very good. This is a particularly interesting and account of Second World War, and it's it's a good book, as I told you. And this is for a philosophical idea about the uh, the way capitalism works and its merits and demerits. So that's all. The end of my thick books episode of 50 Shades of Grey Matter. See you next time.